Thursday evening, after 2 decades of marriage, my 39-year-old wife, beautiful, the mother of our 2 daughters, and the woman I devoted my life to, dropped a shocking revelation. She casually announced that the next night, she had plans to go on a date with a colleague from her job. Jessica and I had married young, barely out of our teens. Our relationship had been a whirlwind. Less than a year after we met, she became pregnant with our first child. We were wild for each other, and despite the challenges, we tied the knot. 7 months later, Ella, our firstborn, joined the world. Our marriage had always seemed like a love-filled partnership, and with the addition of our 2 wonderful daughters, who absolutely adored us both, I felt we had built something solid. I'd worked tirelessly to grow my landscaping business from scratch, transforming it into a multi-million-dollar company that provided us with a comfortable and enviable life. Never in my wildest dreams did I imagine Jessica would say something like this. Her words struck me like a hammer blow. I sat stunned on the couch, clutching a glass of scotch as she explained that she'd been feeling depressed and unhappy since the girls left for university. To me, our life was near perfect, and her confession hit like a betrayal. She admitted that Ryan, a coworker in accounting, had been a confidant through her struggles, a revelation I hadn't seen coming. Jessica had never mentioned being upset, much less depressed. It hurt to think she'd turned to another man to share her emotions. But learning that she wanted to go out with him, that was unbearable. To make it worse, Ryan wasn't just a colleague. He was a married man with 3 young daughters, playing the role of some faux therapist while preying on vulnerable, married women. A predator, plain and simple. He targeted women who felt disconnected, knowing they were easy marks. Jessica's tone was unapologetic as she said, "Michael, I had to be honest with you. I can't hide this anymore. I need to do this for myself. It may sound selfish, but I just need one night to see where it goes." I was seething inside, every nerve in my body urging me to explode, but I knew Jessica too well. Once she'd set her mind on something, no argument would sway her. I stared at her blankly as she fidgeted nervously on the small sofa. The silence between us was suffocating. I drained the last of my scotch, stood, and walked out of the room without a word. She followed me, pleading, "Michael, don't ignore me. Stop sulking. This is happening, and I had to tell you before anything happened. I'd never cheat on you behind your back. I had to be upfront. We've always been honest with each other." I turned to her, and whatever she saw in my expression made her shrink back, pulling her knees to her chest. Without saying a word, I headed to our bedroom, packed a bag with clothes and toiletries for a couple of days, and left. As I passed her on my way to the garage, she trailed behind me, still begging. "Please, Michael, don't go. It's just one night, just one date after 20 years. Surely you can give me that." Shaking my head in disbelief, I got into my car and drove away. That night, I checked into the Ritz-Carlton. Yes, at $100 a night, it wasn't cheap, but I figured if I was going to suffer, I'd do it in comfort. Jessica's calls and texts began almost immediately, but I sent one brief response before blocking her number. I told her I wouldn't be contacting her again until I returned home on Saturday. It was her betrayal. She could deal with the consequences. The next day, I went to work and made sure my secretary blocked any calls from Jessica. I also instructed security not to allow her into the building. My plan was set, and I wasn't about to let her derail it. For years, people have known me as dependable, someone who follows through, whether at work or among friends. At home, I'd been the easygoing husband who always kept his temper in check. I'd thought that treating Jessica like royalty was the key to a happy marriage. But now, staring at the wreckage of our life, I realized my mistake. I remembered an old saying that once made me laugh. Treat her like a queen, and she'll treat you like a servant. The words now felt like a cruel prophecy. I wasn't willing to accept this as my reality. That morning, I called my brother, a detective in Miami, and explained the situation. I asked for his help, and he quickly got in touch with Jameson Mollygon, a private investigator. "Jameson," my brother began, "I need a favor from my brother. He needs someone to follow his wife tonight and gather all the dirt on this other guy by Saturday morning. We need his address, phone number, and any photos of them together. Can you make it happen?" Jameson agreed. By the time Jessica and Ryan sat down for dinner that night, I had already set my next move in motion. I planned to visit Ryan's wife and let her know exactly what her husband was up to, and with whom. Before that, I made another call to an old friend, Nick, who had been through a bitter divorce. Nick relied on an escort service for companionship, and while I'd never considered something like that before, his logic now seemed uncomfortably relatable. "It's simpler and cheaper than dealing with an unfaithful wife," Nick had said. I contacted the service and arranged for a night out with an attractive blonde. I even offered a $1,000 tip, explaining that I wanted a girlfriend experience where she'd act like a loving, long-term partner. It was unconventional, but given the circumstances, I was ready to play the game my way. Michael made it clear to the escort that discretion was critical. If Jessica showed up unexpectedly, the girl was to act as if they'd met casually that evening, not as part of an arrangement. In Michael's mind, if Jessica wanted the freedom to go on a date with another man, she should be prepared to see him doing the same, though he planned to handle it with a touch of class. The plan was simple: meet at a hotel, share drinks, and engage in lighthearted conversation before moving forward with the rest of the evening. Jessica, meanwhile, was busy running her real estate business and hosting an open house that Saturday, as usual. She never returned home before 6 p.m., and this weekend was no different. Backtracking to Thursday night, after Jessica announced her independence, she sat alone on the couch, fuming. She angrily addressed the empty room. "I can't believe he acted like such a child," storming out without saying a single word. "What a jerk." Frustrated by Michael's silence, Jessica repeatedly tried calling and texting him, growing increasingly agitated when the only response she received was a single message. The word betrayal in that text made her momentarily pause, sparking a twinge of guilt. She tried to dismiss it, reassuring herself that the evening with Ryan was just a harmless outing, not infidelity. "It's just one fun night," she thought. "Michael will get over it. Tomorrow I'll make it up to him. He can never stay mad at me. I know exactly how to win him back." Friday night came, and Jessica returned to an empty house. She briefly reconsidered her plans, debating whether to call off the date and ask Michael to come back. But the allure of a thrilling evening was too tempting to resist. Deciding to proceed, she took a long, luxurious bath, shaved her legs, and indulged in her favorite scented lotion. Sitting at her vanity, she carefully applied makeup, transforming herself into a vision of sultry elegance. She admired her reflection as she styled her long hair. Pulling out a brand new, short, and daring dress, she smiled while removing the tags. She paired it with stockings and a garter belt she'd purchased earlier that day, items she had never considered wearing for Michael. Adjusting the garter clips, she hesitated, guilt briefly flickering as she remembered Michael's past attempts to gift her lingerie. On Valentine's Day, he had bought her something from Victoria's Secret, and she had harshly questioned his intentions, accusing him of seeing her as a slut. She had refused to wear it. Now here she was slipping into provocative clothing, but not for her husband. The guilt washed over her briefly, but evaporated just as quickly. "This is for me," she rationalized, dismissing any lingering unease. Once dressed, she stood in front of the full-length mirror, admiring her long legs and sheer stockings and heels. The silk dress clung to her body, her ample chest pressing against the fabric in a way she knew would captivate attention. "God, I look like a little slut," she mused, half laughing. "But this is going to be so much fun. I can't wait to see Ryan's face." She convinced herself this was just an innocent evening. Dinner, drinks, and dancing. Nothing more. But deep down, she felt the stir of desires she had been suppressing. The excitement had been building for weeks, consuming her thoughts. Despite Michael's behavior, which she saw as overdramatic, she was determined to enjoy the night. She was confident Michael would forgive her, as he always did, and allow her this indulgence. After all, hadn't he always let her have her way? Then Michael called. It was a final, desperate attempt to salvage their marriage and stop Jessica from going down this path. Swallowing his pride, he dialed her number, ready to plead and humiliate himself if it meant saving their relationship. When Jessica saw Michael's name on her phone, she felt a pang of guilt mixed with irritation. Still, part Part of her wanted to hear his voice. She picked up, trying to sound cheerful. "Michael, thank you for calling. I miss you so much and love you more than anything. When are you coming home, baby?" Michael's voice was heavy with emotion. "Jessica, I love you too, which is why I'm calling. My heart is breaking over what you're planning. I'm begging you, don't do this. Please stay home. I'll come back, and we can fix whatever's wrong. I'll be whatever you need me to be. Just tell me what you want, and I'll make it happen. Please cancel this date. Don't throw us away." Hearing the tremor in his voice, Jessica felt a flicker of pity, but also a sense of power. His vulnerability reminded her of how deeply he loved her and how much control she had over him. She was certain he'd forgive her, no matter what. Their bond, their children, and his unwavering love were guarantees in her mind. "Michael," she said softly, "I love you so much, and I can't wait to spend the rest of my life with you. But I need to do this tonight. It's not about us, it's about me. Just one night to be impulsive, to do something for myself. You're overthinking this. It's just dinner and a few drinks with a friend. Nothing will happen. Tomorrow, I'll come home, and everything will be back to normal. Please understand, and let me have this chance." Michael's voice cracked as he tried one last time. "Jessica, please. I'm begging you." But Jessica steeled herself, forcing down her emotions. "I love you, Michael, but I have to go." She ended the call, her hand trembling slightly as tears welled in her eyes. Quickly wiping them away to avoid ruining her makeup, she looked in the mirror and whispered to herself, "He'll forgive me. He always does." After fixing her lipstick and spraying on her favorite perfume, Jessica gave herself one final glance in the mirror, adjusted her hair, and pushed thoughts of Michael to the back of her mind. Back in his hotel room, Michael sat on the edge of the bed, staring at his phone with a simmering rage. The call with Jessica had ended, leaving him more distraught than ever. He had poured his heart out, begging her not to go through with the date, only for her to dismiss his pleas and assure him everything would be fine tomorrow. The grief of losing the only woman he had ever loved, the one he had shared his life with for the past 20 years, crushed him. Meanwhile, Jameson, the private investigator, was stationed in his white van parked discreetly across the street from Michael and Jessica's home. Around 5 p.m., he noted Jessica's arrival as she pulled into the garage. An hour later, another car entered the driveway. Jameson immediately recorded the license plate, made a few calls, and within minutes had all the details. By the time Jessica and Ryan left the house, Michael and his brother Henry had Ryan's address, phone number, and background information at their fingertips. When Ryan entered Jessica's house, he immediately picked up on her conflicted emotions. She was nervous, guilt-ridden, and unsure. Ryan, well-versed in handling hesitant women, wasted no time employing his manipulative charm. "Jessica, it's okay," he said, his voice soft and understanding. "We don't have to go through with this. I understand if you're feeling unsure. Your husband's just trying to protect you from people like me. If only he knew how much I respect and care about you as a friend." He sighed for effect, adding, "It's disappointing, but I get it. I was looking forward to tonight." Jessica wavered, comforted by his seemingly casual demeanor. Sensing her hesitation, Ryan pressed gently. "How about we just grab dinner? Nothing more, just two friends sharing a meal. I'll drop you off afterward, no pressure." His words melted her resistance. She told herself it was just dinner, nothing inappropriate, and besides, she was already dressed up. Deep down, she was eager for the attention and excitement. By 7 p.m., the two were on their way to a trendy downtown restaurant. Jameson tailed them, meticulously documenting every moment. His updates came through to Michael and Henry in real time. For the next 4 hours, Jameson captured everything. Photos of Jessica and Ryan holding hands as they entered a dance club, videos of them dancing closely, kissing, and even Ryan's hands exploring Jessica's body as they swayed on the dance floor. Ryan's touches grew bolder, his hand caressing her backside, brushing her chest, and lingering in intimate places. By sunrise, Jameson had sent a full dossier of damning evidence. At exactly 8 p.m., Michael picked up the phone and called Jessica's father, Marvin, a man he had long considered a friend. Breaking the news was no easy task, but Michael felt it was the right thing to do. Marvin, it's Michael, he began, his voice heavy with emotion. Michael, are we still on for golf this Sunday? Marvin responded cheerfully. I don't know, Marvin. I've got some bad news, Michael replied, bracing himself. What's going on? Marvin asked, his tone shifting to concern. Michael sighed deeply. Right now, your daughter is out on a date with a coworker. I thought our marriage was solid, but she told me she needed something more. I just wanted you to know, because I respect you and Margaret, but I can't forgive this. She's breached our prenup, and I consider our marriage over. Marvin sounded stunned. Are you sure, Michael? This doesn't sound like Jessica. Michael's voice hardened. I'm certain, Marvin. I've hired a private investigator who's watching them as we speak. I've seen the photos and videos. She's betrayed me, our marriage, and our kids. I thought you should know. I don't know what to say, Marvin stammered. I'm so sorry, Michael. Please don't act rashly. Maybe there's still a chance to fix this. I'm done, Marvin. I am sorry. I'll call you later. Michael ended the call, feeling a mix of sadness and relief for taking a step toward closure. With Ryan's address now in hand, Michael drove 20 minutes to confront the other party's wife. Abigail, a young mother of 3, answered the door in tight jeans and a lacy top that accentuated her curvy figure. Michael forced himself to remain composed and keep his gaze steady. Are you Mrs. Brooks? Ryan's wife, he asked. Yes. Is everything okay? Abigail responded, puzzled. Your husband works with my wife. May I come in for a moment? Michael asked politely. Inside, Michael delivered the devastating news. Mrs. Brooks, I'm sorry to tell you this, but your husband is currently on a date with my wife. She told me she felt indebted to Ryan and decided to repay him. I have photos and videos to prove it. Abigail was stunned. Are you certain? My Ryan always spends Friday nights playing cards. Michael nodded grimly. I wouldn't be here if I wasn't certain. My investigator is documenting everything as we speak. I thought you deserved to know. He left Abigail in tears, her world as shattered as his own. Returning to his hotel, Michael tried to relax, sipping on the hotel's specialty coffee. But any sense of peace was obliterated when he opened the investigator's photos and videos. Seeing Jessica kissing Ryan and allowing his hands to roam her body broke Michael completely. The stockings Jessica wore, the same ones he had gifted her months ago and she had dismissed, were a final blow. The betrayal was too much. He shouted into the empty room. You're going to pay for this. Michael's love for Jessica had been replaced by a simmering rage. By Saturday afternoon, Michael was ready for his own plans. Meeting Candy, a stunning young woman, at the hotel, he spent 2 hours with her. Candy was everything he had requested, attentive, warm, and willing to play her role to perfection. They arrived back at the house just after 4 p.m., and by 5 p.m., Michael and Candy were in bed together. Before joining her, Michael carefully placed a note he had written for Jessica on the front door. It read, Jessica, last night, you broke the sacred bond of our marriage vows and shattered my heart. By doing so, you also voided the marriage contract we shared. Legally, we are still married, but as far as I'm concerned, our relationship is over. We are now free to live as we please. I will be taking the master bedroom in this house. As it is my home, you may use any other room, but my bed is no longer yours. Your belongings have been moved to the guest room. You wanted freedom, and now you have it. I hope you're satisfied with your choices and the life you've chosen. Love, your ex-husband, Michael. Beneath the note, he placed his wedding ring. Using one of his collector knives, he slashed through the letter and the ring before stabbing the knife into the wooden door, leaving it as the first thing Jessica would see upon returning home. When Jessica got back from work at 6:10 p.m., the sight of the knife embedded in the door stopped her in her tracks. The chilling image filled her with dread. Slowly, she approached, scanning for signs of anything else amiss. As she neared the door, she noticed the note addressed to her, with Michael's wedding ring prominently displayed. Her hands trembled, and tears streamed down her face as she read the letter. Clutching the torn note and the ruined ring, Jessica stumbled into the house, calling out desperately for Michael. Her sobs echoed through the empty, darkened hallway. Hearing muffled sounds upstairs, she followed them, her steps hesitant but driven by rising anger. She paused outside the master bedroom, pressing her ear to the door. The noises became unmistakable. She flung the door open to find a young, attractive woman straddling Michael, her body moving rhythmically, her large breasts bouncing with every motion. Jessica stood frozen in stunned silence, taking in the scene. Finally, fury overtook her, and she screamed, "How could you, you bastard!" before running out of the house, tears streaming down her face as she drove to her sister Megan's home. Once there, Jessica broke down and told Megan everything. "I caught Michael in bed with another woman. I don't know where else to go," she sobbed. Megan listened sympathetically, but was visibly taken aback. "Michael? Of all people? He's always been so devoted to you. He treated you better than any man I know, better than most husbands would. Are you sure there's not more to this? Did something happen to set him off?" Through her tears, Jessica admitted, "I went on a date last night with someone from work. Just dinner and a little dancing. That's all." Megan's face hardened. "Wait, you went on a date? You left your husband home alone while you had dinner and danced with another man? Are you serious?" "It wasn't like that," Jessica tried to explain. "You're making it sound worse than it was." Megan shook her head in disbelief. "Jessica, do you have any idea how disrespectful that is? Did you honestly think Michael would be okay with it? You really messed up. You've jeopardized your marriage because of your selfishness." "I told him it's just fun," Jessica whispered, her voice cracking. "Jessica," Megan said firmly, "you need to go home tomorrow and try to fix this, but you'd better prepare for the possibility that it's too late. I'll call Michael and see if he's willing to talk, but don't expect miracles." That night, Jessica cried herself to sleep in Megan's guest room, barely managing to close her eyes. The next morning, Megan texted Michael, asking him to call. Michael, who had always been fond of Megan, returned her call promptly. Magan, how's it going?" Michael greeted casually. Michael, Magan raplia. "I know you're furious, and I don't blame you at all, but Jessica's here, and she's devastated. You made your point, but maybe you two should talk. She's clearly messed up, but if she hasn't gone too far, there might still be something to salvage." Michael chuckled bitterly. "Megan, you know me. I don't tolerate nonsense. But sure, she can come back and talk. It's still her house. I didn't kick her out, I just set boundaries. My anger has cooled, but it's been replaced by resentment. I'll listen, but I can't promise anything. Right now, I hate her as much as I once loved her." Megan sighed. "I understand. Just be patient. She loves you, even if she doesn't deserve you. I'll let her know." That Sunday afternoon, Michael returned home from the gym to find Jessica sitting at the kitchen table, trying to appear composed. "We're not getting divorced," she said with a forced smile. "We can work through this because we love each other." Michael poured himself a coffee and sat across from her in silence. After a few sips, he finally spoke. "Jessica, I've made peace with whatever happens. Divorce or not doesn't matter to me anymore. You broke the trust in our marriage, and I can't see us as a couple anymore. We'll live under the same roof, but that's where it ends. You won't be in my bed again." Jessica's face crumpled. "Michael, he's not my boyfriend. Nothing happened." Michael's tone hardened. "Jessica, you went out with another man. You dressed up for him, had dinner, danced, let him touch you, and kissed him. To you, it might feel small. To me, it's everything. That's what ended our marriage. But I don't want a divorce," Jessica insisted. "Give me time, and I'll win you back. Are you done with that woman, or is she still in the picture?" Michael laughed coldly. "Now that's funny. You broke our vows, not me. You ended this marriage when you left with him. Candy is young, beautiful, fun, and an amazing lover. I'm not giving her up. Honestly, Jessica, being with Candy, we've done things I never even dreamed of doing with you. Now that I know what I was missing, why would I give that up?" Michael's words were cold and cutting. He continued, unrelenting. "Oh, and while you were out enjoying your date, I paid a visit to Ryan's wife, Abigail. Did you know they have 3 beautiful kids? Of course, you didn't think about that while you were with him, did you?" Jessica's expression shifted to shock as Michael delivered his next revelation. "Here's the kicker, though. Abigail told me you're not the first. You're the third woman Ryan has cheated on her with in the past year. The last one, Rebecca Marlowe from your office, caused her own divorce after their little fling. Apparently, this is Ryan's pattern. Find a vulnerable woman, charm her, and destroy her life. Abigail believes once a cheater, always a cheater. Honestly, you fit right into his category now. Jessica's face crumpled as the weight of Michael's words sank in. The realization that Ryan wasn't the man she had imagined hit her like a brick wall. Her self-directed anger was palpable, and she looked horrified at what she'd done. "Michael, he's not my boyfriend. Stop saying that," she yelled, her voice tinged with panic. "I can't believe you went to his wife's house and told her everything. My God, it was just dinner. You're cruel and spiteful." Michael laughed bitterly. "Cruel? Spiteful? Let me ask you this. How do you define what you did? Loving? Caring? Respectful? You seem to forget that just dinner turned into dancing, touching, kissing, and betraying your husband. I promised Abigail all the photos and videos from that night. She deserves the truth when Ryan tries to downplay it. You think this isn't cheating? In the real world, Jessica, it's exactly that. You betrayed your marriage and me." "I can't believe this," Jessica said, her voice cracking. "You're the one bringing other women into our home. That's inexcusable." Michael's eyes narrowed. "You're not in a position to lecture me, Jessica. You're the one who walked away from our vows. And no, I'm not giving up Candy. She gives me things I never knew I was missing. If you can't handle it, you're free to leave. Maybe Ryan has room for you in his studio apartment." Her face twisted in disbelief. "You can't be serious. Don't you love me? Don't you want us to be together again?" Michael sighed deeply. "Jessica, love and trust go hand in hand. Do I still love you? Sure. But how can I trust or love someone who so easily turned their back on our marriage? No man should tolerate his wife being with another man. But you didn't care. You made your choice. Now you have to deal with the consequences." Jessica's voice trembled. "Please, Michael, I'll do anything. I'll prove my love to you." Michael shook his head, unmoved. "You already proved what you're capable of, Jessica. We can live as housemates, or you can file for divorce. The choice is yours. But don't expect things to ever go back to the way they were." For the next month, Michael brought Candy home every weekend. Their encounters were frequent and unapologetic, and while Michael enjoyed the revenge, a part of him began to feel guilty. Jessica, devastated, would leave the house every time Candy arrived, unable to bear the sight of her husband with another woman. She would return only after Candy left, her pain written all over her face. One Sunday evening, Jessica returned home and pleaded with Michael. "You've punished me enough, Michael. Every week, I've had to watch you bring another woman into our home. It's unbearable. Please, give me another chance." Michael looked at her, his expression cold. "Love? You don't know the meaning of the word. If you did, you wouldn't have turned your back on me. But I'll tell you what, I'll stop seeing other women for now, on one condition: we go to counseling." Jessica clung to him desperately, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you, Michael. I promise I'll make it up to you." Michael raised a hand, silencing her. "Don't celebrate just yet. I'm not forgiving you, and I'm not forgetting what you did. Counseling is your last chance." Over the next 3 months, they attended therapy with Dr. Reynolds. The process was grueling. Michael was forced to relive Jessica's betrayal repeatedly, each session reopening wounds he desperately wanted to heal. Jessica struggled to face the enormity of the pain she had caused, and though she complained about Michael's revenge, he reminded her that she had broken their prenup. "You gave me a free pass, Jessica," he said flatly. "Be grateful I didn't do worse." Eventually, they came to an agreement. Jessica signed a post-nuptial contract forfeiting everything if she ever had another affair. She also allowed Michael access to her phone, email, and text messages and agreed to wear a GPS tracker. It was humiliating, but she accepted it as penance. Despite her efforts to rebuild trust, Michael couldn't shake Abigail's words. Once a cheater, always a cheater. Though life slowly returned to a semblance of normalcy, Michael kept a watchful eye on Jessica. Her sister Megan even became an ally, helping ensure Jessica stayed on track. As for Ryan, his life fell apart. His wife, Abigail, divorced him, taking the house and securing alimony and child support for their 3 kids. Ryan, left penniless, moved into a tiny studio apartment, a shadow of the man he once was. All his losses stemmed from a few dinners, dances, and stolen kisses. What a fool, Michael thought. Jessica, mortified by Ryan's history of infidelity, realized how close she had come to destroying her family. The consequences were a sobering reminder of the cost of betrayal. She vowed never to make the same mistake again, though she couldn't erase the damage she had done. 2 years later, Michael still carried the scars of Jessica's betrayal. Not one scar on my heart came from an enemy, he reflected bitterly. They all came from people who said they loved me. Thanks for stopping by our Avocado Infidelity Stories, where the hidden truths of betrayal are brought to the surface. Each video uncovers real-life tales of deception, intense passion, and heartbreak, peeling back the layers of seemingly flawless relationships. From shocking encounters to secret affairs that upend lives, we reveal the raw, unedited truth behind the appearance of loyalty. Subscribe for more cheating stories.